Hello, Blazers. Welcome to episode 105 of UAB Green and Told, original release Monday, August 28th, 2023. Through our podcast, we are given the opportunity to share stories from members of the UAB community. Listen to previous episodes of Green and Told at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app. While there, I'd like to encourage you to leave a written review to help more alums find us. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. Have you ever had a time that you just didn't feel complete, like something wasn't right? It's a feeling many of us, if not all, experience at various points of our lives. Even UAB's new football coach, Trent Dilfer.
I woke up one morning, something was off. I didn't have purpose. I was not as good a version of me as I once was. And my kids started noticing it. My wife started noticing it.
For Dilfer, the something missing in his life was football, and more precisely, coaching. As he'll share, roaming the sidelines working with others was something he had already been doing when his NFL career was winding down.
The back half of my career, I almost count as training ground for coaching because I was more of a coach player than I was a player.
A playing career in which he enjoyed plenty of success, even winning a Super Bowl following the 2000 season with the Baltimore Ravens. But Coach will admit that the success he enjoyed in the league almost didn't happen.
I lost my edge a little bit. It's like I had gotten there. The easiest way to say is I got there mentality instead of I'm still earning it mentality, and I wish I could go back and change.
Following a very successful stint in coaching at a private high school in Nashville, Trent Dilfer was named UAB's head football coach in late 2022. Later this week, he'll lead the Blazers out onto the field for the first time. Sure, we can talk X's and O's all day long, but that won't shed a light on the man behind the whistle. Born in the Central Coast of California, what you imagine as a stereotypical Californian is probably right. Board shorts, flip-flops, and skateboards were all part of Trent's life. It was a life in which he had two homes, one with his mom, one with his dad.
My parents got divorced when I was young. They lived across town. My dad lived in Capitola. My mom lived in Aptos. Stepdad came into my picture when I was 5. He's awesome. Kind of got raised by two dads, and it was a cool childhood.
I can imagine you being just a very active, very athletic kid growing up. Were you involved in a lot of sports?
Yeah, everything. My mom's philosophy, she was a gymnastics coach, owned a gym. And her kind of parenting philosophy was keep me busy to keep me out of trouble. So I did gymnastics, swam, track and field, golf, baseball, football, basketball, boogie boarded, beach volleyball, skateboarded, you name it, whatever it was. I was always busy. It's great stories of, they had a Volkswagen Vanagon, and they kept an entire closet of uniforms in it for me. So they would take me from one sport to the next. And I kind of grew up eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the Vanagon and going from practice to practice.
Did you ever get tired?
I don't remember ever getting tired. No, I loved being active. And it got to the point when I got older and you couldn't back up all the sports, they would lock me out of the house. Like literally I'd be banging on the door, can I come in? They're like, no, not till you shoot 1,000 free throws. So I was stuck outside until dinner time.
Throughout your junior high school days, were you still playing multiple sports, or did you start to kind of whittle it down? Because ultimately you became a football player.
No, I never whittled it down. I actually lettered in 4 sports: football, basketball, track. I would just run in the track and field events. I never really practiced, but then I played baseball 1 spring and golf for 3 springs. So every year it was every sport. I'm still a believer in that. In fact, we emphasize recruiting dual sport athletes. Mm-hmm. I think it teaches you how to fit a role in another sport, teaches you how to be a part of a team, get coached by different people. There's just athletic crossover training that helps. I think it's injury prevention. There's a lot of reasons for dual sports or multiple. So I'm a big believer in them. And plus, we want our kids here to hit their peaks when they're in college, not when they're in high school. And what you're seeing with a lot of specialized athletes is they peak in high school and they get over recruited. Where we'd rather recruit a kid that his best stuff is coming in college instead of what just happened in high school.
Did you have a favorite sport? Surely you did.
Basketball has always been my first love as a player. Now, I enjoy golf more. I enjoyed it. I just wasn't as good. So I was more recruited as a basketball player than I was a football player. It's hard to believe that now, but I had a chance to go playing like that lower level Division I basketball. A lot of opportunities there. So your Santa Clara, St. Mary's, Gonzaga before it was a monster. The kind of that West Coast lower level Division I track was where I would have played and contributed as a college basketball player. But my ceiling, my future was in football. And thanks to my stepdad, he was the one that kind of pointed that out to me.
When did you realize you had something special with football?
I went to a camp at Cal Berkeley before my senior year, and I went as a quarterback. There were 14 quarterbacks there, and quickly I realized I was number 14. But they allowed me to go play tight end, wide receiver, and I won MVP of the camp. And I realized then that athletically, physically, I could do it. And then that kind of fueled my senior year. Although I was not a highly productive quarterback, I knew I could do it once I was taught some stuff. So instead of going to a Pac-12, Pac-10 at the time, Pac-10 school and playing tight end or outside linebacker, I bet on my chances of learning how to play quarterback.
And you rolled the dice and you did win, because ultimately you had a very successful career at Fresno State. You win in the NFL, had a successful career in the NFL, even won a Super Bowl. What was it like working your way through Fresno, going into the NFL and enjoying the success that you did?
I it's always a hard question to answer. I was so locked in college of getting better. It was kind of my daily mantra was, what could I get better at? So I was always working on something. And then when the scouts started coming around and people started saying, hey, there's a chance you can play in the NFL, I think that fueled my fire more. I worked harder instead of not working as hard, and just kind of kept pushing. And then I had a chance to leave out. So I left early. I left after my junior year. That was a hard decision because at the time it was not common. This is 1994. I think only 1 or 2 years beforehand were guys leaving early. So it was kind of a new thing and wasn't really sure. And really what flipped it was we only had like 1 or 2 starters coming back. If I were to come back, so I didn't know how good we would be. I had a chance to be, I was being told at the time I might be the first pick of the draft. So, tough opportunity to pass up. And then I got in the league, and unfortunately, and this is a large reason why I coach and what I try to help kids with is, I lost my edge a little bit. It's like I had gotten there. The easiest way to say is I got there mentality instead of I'm still earning it mentality. And I wish I could go back and change. I think I would have been a much more successful pro. I think I would have been better earlier on. I think I would have reached my potential as a player, which I don't believe I ever did. So then it's this roller coaster of, oh gosh, I've got stuck behind the 8 ball here, and I got to find a way out. And I've dug myself a hole. I got to dig my way out. And that's really what years 4, 5, 6 were digging myself out of a hole that I had created years 1 through 3. Luckily, I was able to do that. And by that time, I'd become a pro. I truly had professional habits, handled myself in kind of a way that was set apart from other professionals. But now my body had started to break down. So unfortunately, I was never able to match the peak of my athletic performance with the peak of my emotional, mental performance. So then it's kind of this back half of my career I was a pro. I was really smart. I could do all the XO stuff. I knew what you were doing before you did it, but physically I was very average. I was very average the second half of my career. Had suffered a bunch of injuries and just didn't have the juice that I once had. So, that's kind of the back half of my career. I almost count as training ground for coaching because I was more of a coach player than I was a player. Involved in game planning with my coaches, involved in day-to-day, game day operations in terms of calling plays and dissecting defenses and all those different things. So I think the second half of my career was much more cerebral than it was physical. And now that I look back at it, it makes sense why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because a lot of that was training ground to become a coach one day.
Growing up, did you ever think coaching?
My parents always said yes. My mom has always said, always, even when I was a teenager, that I had this ability to communicate complex things in a simple way, that I could teach somebody how to do something that they couldn't do. I've played a ton of golf in my life. At one time, I was pretty decent. I was a +3 handicap, and I taught people how to play golf. Even though I'm not a golf instructor, I could always find like what they were doing wrong and be like, oh, if you just fix that, it would fix like 4 or 5 other things.
Yeah.
And I've always had that eye. I guess it's an analytical eye. So yeah, my parents have always thought I would coach. A lot of my friends always thought I would coach. And honestly, I wanted to coach. I didn't coach because I had daughters, and I had 3 girls. What we'd gone through as a family was obviously very traumatic, us losing our son. He was our second. And I didn't want to ever make them feel as if I was abandoning them for a bunch of boys. And it was that simple. Like, they lost a brother. I didn't want them to see their dad go leave them for a bunch of boys, because when a girl's young, her brain's not fully developed, that could easily be misinterpreted. So that's why I didn't coach. If I would have had boys, I bet you I would have. They could have come around the locker room. They could have been around me. But I ran from coaching. I had dozens and dozens of opportunities to coach in the NFL, coming out of the league while I was at ESPN. It wasn't for me at the time.
Are you okay talking about your son?
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you lost your son, how did your perspective on the game, on life, on family change?
Big question. I think there's a lot of layers to this. I think number one, nothing changed because we were rooted in our faith.
Yeah.
I'll start there. It tests your faith for sure. Like, it goes from kumbaya, go to church, to real life stuff. But that was a good thing, that, it matured our faith dramatically as a family. I think you cherish the moments that a lot of times as parents we think are mundane. I'll use driving, for example. We lived in the Bay Area while I was at ESPN in California, and you're in your car all the time. Like, it's 25 to 40 minutes to take the kids to school, 25 to 40 pick them up, an hour and a half taking them to volleyball that night, an hour taking them back. It was relentless, the amount of time we spent in the car. And instead of making those mundane, tedious hours, they become fruitful hours. There are opportunities to be one-on-one or one-on-two with your kids. And sometimes we do family events. We just all jump in the car together to go to a practice, to be together. We cherished our times when we didn't have a kid's sport and we were able to sit down at the dinner table, or, road trips with volleyball became little mini vacations. It changed how I decided to do my work schedule when I retired from the NFL and had a few coaching opportunities, more than a few. It was that, or go to ESPN. And we as a family chose ESPN because it created some freedom, some work-life balance, opportunity to work really hard for a couple of days of the week across the country, but be back home and be together. I think it changed my role as a father. More than just a provider and all that stuff. Like, I enjoy helping my wife out with the domestic things around the house, with carpooling, with taking the kids to play dates, with whatever it is. Like, just think of all the things we do raising kids. We kind of co-parented. There was never the dad goes to work and mom raises the kids. It was, we're raising the kids together, and dad will find time to work. It created an honesty and a transparency in our household that I think people are seeing in me as a coach. Like, I just don't really have a filter. I don't sugarcoat anything. I kind of let people get inside and see what's inside there. Some don't like it, some do. But as a family, we were that way too. Like, we handled conflict in the moment. We didn't let it take a small thing and build into a big thing. We communicated about everything. That they knew to tell me the truth, even if it was a hard truth. I think long-winded answer of saying, I think you become more raw as a family. You you take that facade off that we tend to do in our family environments, and ours, we just don't have one. The Dilfers don't have one of those. And I think a lot of that's because we cherish the time that we're together, and we don't want little things getting in the way of that.
I imagine the Dilfer household was very similar to when you were a kid, constantly going, constantly playing sports, because all three of your girls wind up playing Division I sports. Was that
Yeah.
the case?
Yeah, the rule was they had to be doing something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't only sports. I mean, Maddie did dance, and Tori has an artistic bug to her, and they played musical instruments for a while. I think a couple of them tried out for plays. But yeah, there always had to do something. There was no downtime. We just didn't believe in downtime. Weekends, we'd give them downtime. There's definitely a time to rest and recover and have some me time. But midweek, there wasn't going to be like Wednesday nights, hey, I'm going to go to the mall with my friends. Like, that just didn't happen on our watch. We just felt like that was an opportunity for bad things to happen. We felt like they were more protected, more stimulated with an activity, something that they could, have a challenge in front of them. Something where I use the mountain climbing analogy a lot. Like, there was always a mountain to climb. There was always a challenge. I thought that taught them a lot of grit, a lot of substance, a lot of figure it outness. It was exhausting as parents, but worth every second of it. So yeah, very, very, very active household, and academics was a priority. I joke about this, but I mean it. I tell our players this all the time. Like, I've never in my parenting ever told them what letter grade they needed to get. The standard was simply do your best, whatever your best is. And it was also important because we felt like academics was how they learned how to learn. It wasn't what they were learning. Frankly, I think they learn a lot of stuff they probably don't need to learn, but they learn how to learn. And I think that's a valuable skill. And obviously it's worked for them.
As the girls got older, things kind of changed for you because you did finally get into coaching. You started off in high school, obviously. Talk about what kind of brought you back to the game, and why was that the right time to coach?
Yeah, it was super interesting. This is kind of my favorite part of the journey. I had retired from TV in 19 and moved to, sorry, not 19, 17, and moved to Austin. We wanted to get out of California. We had been looking at Austin, Nashville, Denver, some areas, and settled on Austin. We had some dear friends there, still do. And, I was lucky. I was in a position where I could retire and play golf every day. I had some small business interests. I had some investments. I was being courted to do some consulting, blah, 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 but basically retired.
Sure.
And I was going to chase our kids around. Two of them were playing college volleyball, and the third, Delaney, was getting ready to. So we were actually looking for one of these giant RVs, and we were going to spend 6 months of the year on the road, go visiting our friends in football and the SEC and NFL and Mountain West, and do all that, and then watch our girls play volleyball on the weekend, and then be retired the other half of the year. And I woke up one morning, something was off. Like, I didn't have purpose. I was not as good a version of me as I once was. And my kids started noticing it. My wife started noticing it. And it was around that time I realized, we weren't wired to retire at 40 something years old. There were still mountains to climb. But the challenge was, we had just moved Delaney from California, where she was doing great, to Austin, where she had acclimated fine. But I didn't want to change her life again. And really, she was the one. The other two didn't have a real voice in this. They gave their opinion, but Delaney, I needed her to release me. It needed to be her wanting me to do this, because it was going to take a tremendous family sacrifice. And she did. In fact, she felt led even before I asked, and before she was prompted to say something. She was on board for graduating high school early, which was really hard for her. She had to take an incredible load of classes in the fall of her senior year to graduate early. Got all A's doing it, so that they can meet me in Nashville. And then I lived by myself for 9 months. I lived in an office at a high school with a dog. And that's what people forget was, we made a huge sacrifice to go to Nashville and change that community. or spearhead the change in that community. And my family is, had as much to do with that as I did. So, I'd fly back. I wore out Southwest Airlines that year. It was, leave Nashville, go watch Delaney play on Tuesday, come back first thing Wednesday morning. Had to change how the team practiced around that just to be able to be involved in her life her senior year, the fall of her senior year.
Yeah.
But it was good because she ended up coming to Nashville the spring of her senior year, enrolled in college early, and we kind of reunited as a family. But that was tough. That was a really tough stretch, but it was all of them that kind of released me to do so. And we're all very pleased that it went that way, because I think as a family, they've really enjoyed this ride that I've taken coaching.
Was coaching all that you thought it would be when you first got into it in 2019, 2020?
Yeah, it's better. It's way better. My perception of coaching when I got into it was what my NFL experience was, matched with a little bit of this Elite 11 kind of grassroots experience, but it definitely was not the true 360 of coaching. And I didn't realize, now, even though my parents were educators, my stepdad was a coach, I probably should have known this, but the impact that you have on a young person if done right, or the positive if done right, but also the negative if done wrong. You're an extension of the parenting process many times. In fact, at the high school level, I'd argue you're kind of co-parenting if you're given permission to do so by the parents. And even at this level, it's amazing how the relationships in a short amount of time are, trump the ambition or the trying to win a game or building of a program or remodeling of a program. It's amazing how these relationships don't just impact the kids, but they impact us as coaches. So, there's opportunity to go parent boys. I said that my pain has been repurposed into passion. I don't think I've ever been criticized for not having enough passion. Maybe not enough hair, maybe not enough intelligence, but not enough passion has never been a question. And a lot of that's my pain in my life. My personal story has been repurposed, and it's repurposed into a passion for these kids, both at Lipscomb here, doing things a certain way, having high standards, expecting high standards, helping them become better members of society. I've said this too, and I think this is one of the coolest parts of coaching. Football is not the most important thing that happens on a campus. It's really not. It's not in the Southeast even. There are many things that are probably as important or more important. It's hard to argue that more things are more impactful. And there's a real difference there. Many things are as important or more important. But football tends to impact a community, impact a campus, more so than most things. I'm not going to say everything, but more so than most things. And it's really cool when you do it right and you get a building full of people, whether that building is 100 people in high school or 200 people here or whatever it grows into, that group of people can impact a community for the better if done right. And I've seen that happen at one level, and I'm excited to see it happen at this level.
You spent 3 years? 4 years at Lipscomb.
4 years.
4 years at Lipscomb, and you turned the program around from 5-5 to undefeated. So things really turned around. But what was the biggest challenge as a new coach, even at the high school level?
Very similar to all level. There hasn't been that big a difference, to be honest with you. I think this has been easier in the sense that so much groundwork had been laid. It's not like this place was falling apart when I got here. It had a very strong foundation. It's had great leadership. It's had good players. It's had good support. When I got to Lipscomb, it was a dust bowl. I think there were 36 kids on that roster my first spring lift, and 6 of them had to lift a PVC pipe because they weren't strong enough to lift a bar. They had divested in football completely. They hadn't raised money. They didn't care. Frankly, the administration didn't want it outside of a handful of them. The community involvement was next to none. So really you were changing the thought process of a lot of people. You're trying to convince them that this could be a good thing. And then you were fighting against the grain on a lot of things too. So That was nothing short of a miracle, what we did at Lipscomb. And I say it starts with faithful prayer. It started with a lot of divine intervention. There was a lot of really good people that I surrounded myself, and then a lot of really good people that rallied to make that thing happen. People give me the credit for it. I would not, I deflect a lot of that because it took so many people to pull that thing off. But I learned a lot of lessons along the way, and one of them was it does take everybody. We can't feel protective. We can't do the things we want to do in the American. We can't win championships unless everybody has a hand in that. And everybody go, oh, that sounds cool, coach. But it's true. If you go and look at championship programs at any level, it's not just the football program. It's not just the basketball program. It's the community. It's everybody getting behind them and saying, we're going to pour gasoline on what you're doing, program. And that's what we need to have happen here, frankly, is we need everybody to help pour gasoline on what we're trying to do. And if we get that, we'll be massively successful. But it's not something you can just do as a coach. Like, I've said this so many times, and I think the more I say it, the more I believe it. I think the head football coach in college football is probably the most overrated person in the building, except for who he hires. And maybe I can take that one step further, except for who he hires and who he rallies. So I think my primary job here is to hire great people, which I've done, and then rally great people, the people of Birmingham, to get behind this and say, hey, if we can all invest in this thing, if we can all wrap our arms around it, it's good for everybody. Because when you win in football and when you have kids that do life the right way and impact your community properly, everybody wins. It's why everybody works so hard to bring football back. I think sometimes we don't need a history lesson, but we can learn from the lessons of history. And there was a reason why so much investment went into bringing football back here, because it's really good for the city of Birmingham. Winning football here, dominant winning football here, a city on fire for winning football here would be great for the city of Birmingham. But again, it's going to take everybody.
What did you know about UAB and the football program? Did you know anything?
A little bit. They had recruited a couple of our players at Lipscomb. I have a friend whose son walked on here, played for Bill. I knew of Bill in football circles, just as a really good football coach, a great defensive mind. I didn't know much about Birmingham. We have really close friends here that we sit on a board with. So what I knew of Birmingham is what they had told us. But that was about it. It was exciting to learn about this city. Everything that I learned has been reinforced. It's exceeded expectations even. But yeah, I think a lot of this, I said this in my opening press conference, I'd be lying to tell you that I knew a lot. I did promise that I'd figure it out, and I do think I'm doing that.
What is the biggest surprise about Birmingham? Not even UAB, just Birmingham, since
food.
You've been living here.
The food. I had no idea it was one of the great food towns in America, and we're foodies. A lot of people that saw my belly grow exponentially in the months that I took this job, I frequented a lot of them. I've since lost some weight, but the food's incredible. I love the people. I've been blown away by how welcoming and authentic the people have been. And I'm probably jaded a little bit because my time in California, my time in Austin, my time in Nashville, 3 cities that have become very surface, maybe fake to a certain degree, 3 areas that kind of fake. To see that just authenticity of people here, the welcoming nature, the friendliness has been really a neat thing for me and my family.
You come into the program at an interesting time as it joins the AAC. How challenging is it going to be this fall, and what are your expectations?
Well, I think football is hard in general. I've always answered these questions on football expectations this way. Football is hard, no matter how good. If you're Alabama, it's hard. And if you're a team that's expected to win 0 games, it's hard. And it's probably equally hard, because with high expectations comes different challenges. With low expectations comes other challenges. But football by nature is hard. the journey you go on through the course of a season. And in college football, really, it's a 365 calendar. Like, you're always doing something football in college football. There's just a lot of challenges in general, and you have to decide, are you going to look at those as problems, or are you going to look at them as opportunities? And we look at them as opportunities. Those challenges excite me. I think that the conference talent pool is very high. They have very good coaches. There's some tough road trips, and you have to play in really hot weather, and you have to play in really cold weather. You have to play in the South. You have to play in the Northeast. There's just, a lot of challenges. You got to play against different schemes. You got to play against an air raid to a West Coast, to a, wishbone Navy offense. There's all kinds of things that excite me because it's going to be stimulating to rally each week. I think there's natural challenges being in SEC country, where, the premier program in the world for the past 20 years is right down the street. Where another premier program in the SEC is a couple hours away. I think there's natural challenges with that, but there's also opportunities in that. So I think to me, I'm excited about those things. I think our people are excited about those things. College football right now has a very curmudgeon approach. The woe is me. Oh, we wish the good old days were back. You hear a lot of that, and that's not the vibe here. We don't know any other way. We're excited about this way. This is the way we know, and we're looking for solutions in the midst of these challenges. So, but that's all lip service. Like I say it all the time, like, everybody's got the cool phrases and the cool signs on their walls and their buildings. Who are the people that can be about it every day? Not just talk about it, but be about it. And I think that's been the most fun. The most fun is waking up at around 5 every morning. Some days it's 4, some days it's 5:15, but it's around 5, and jump out of bed knowing you got a boatload of climbing to do that day. And at the end of the day, you're going to try to get to the top of a hill, and then you're going to fall back down it, metaphorically, and climb it again the next day. And you keep doing that, then you're being about it. And we're doing winning things every day in this building, every moment of every day. And I think you start stacking those up. I talk a lot to my people about cumulative effect. The cumulative effect of good habits, good decision-making, big climbing, perseverance, all these different things is championships. I've seen it, I've done it, I've lived it at different levels. I think I have some credibility there. Now it's just getting everybody to climb with me.
That's Coach Trent Dilfer. In November 2022, Dilfer was introduced as UAB's newest head coach. While he is new to the campus community, he has definitely put a lot of thought into what it means to be a Blazer.
This is my first iteration, so give me another chance at this another time. In my short time here, I'd say there's a great deal of pride in being a Blazer. There's a blue-collar toughness to being a Blazer. I think when you're a Blazer also, it's more than just playing for the team that you're playing for, or working for the hospital that you work for, or working in the department that you work for. I've noticed that if you're a Blazer, it's bigger than you. You represent something bigger than you. And that's a message, that's a core value of mine that I've tried to express to this team, but I've noticed it all over this institution. I've noticed it in this city, that people are true Blazers, the ones that went here, that are teaching here, that are serving here, that are working here, that are playing here, that are coaching here. It's bigger than them. I think that's why our athletic department leads the conference in community service hours. It's why they won the academic award, because I think everybody here's bought into something bigger than just trying to win a game or hit a bottom line or teach a class or whatever it is. I think they truly inside them say, you know what, this is bigger than the thing I've been called to do, and it affects a lot of people.
Be sure to check out past episodes of the UAB Green and Told podcast. Listen in at alumni.uab.edu/Green and Told. Have a story to share or know someone who does? Email greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on social media. Just search UAB Alumni on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.